What is up, boys? My name is Berate, and my video did absolutely terrible. Now, in order to keep my channel from dying and my ad revenue from absolutely plummeting, I need to upload something to keep this channel from going into the dirt. Now, there are quite a bit of things that I have been seeing in my recent students' VODs when I've been coaching them that would be either too niche or too short to put into a video of its own, so that's what this video is for. This is 5 mistakes you're probably still making in your ranked games that are holding you back. Let's get into it. Now, the first mistake that I see a lot of people making in their ranked games that they don't realize that they're making is smoking the wrong spots. Now, this is for all you controller players out there, or even for people that like to fill controller, so this tip will be useful to you. Retake smokes. On defense, there are 3 stages that a retake can be in. There is backside control, front sight control, and choke point lockout. That's just what I like to call it. Stick with me here. So when the bomb is planted by the attackers and you want to retake the site, you can very easily split the site into 3 parts. There's back sight, front sight, and the choke point. Your goal as the defenders is to hopefully push from CT to first get control of back sight, then get control of front sight, then while the enemies are pushed into the choke point, then try and defuse the bomb as they're trying to spam you. Simple, easy, straightforward. But how do you actually go about doing this with smokes? You need to use retake smokes. Now, retake smokes will differ from map to map, and if you guys want a retake smoke guide, please let me know in the comments down below. But something that people need to realize is they need to smoke for the retake. So these smokes right here are meant so that you can more easily isolate your backside fights, right? You drop down here, you can clear this, and then backside is yours. And then you have another smoke to clear the choke point like this. Then once you clear front sight, that's when you smoke off the bomb if you have any smokes left to stick. So there's a checklist that I like to follow when I am retaking the site. If I don't have control of any part of the site, my immediate goal is to get control of back sight. And I do that by throwing some kind of retake smoke to help me take back sight. This is a good smoke I like to use because it covers me from main. It allows me to isolate this fight and this fight right here. It allows me to isolate this fight and this fight. Then it lets me drop down safely here to clear this and this, and then I turn around and clear this. Simple as that. Or I can drop into the smoke and take a fight here, but the goal is to get control of back sight to hopefully push the enemies into front sight. Now, once I have control of back sight and the enemies are stuck in front sight trying to hold this, that's when you would smoke off the choke point. You smoke off the choke point to isolate people front sight from getting help from their teammates who are sat at the choke point, either trying to play for lineups or just getting ready to spam the bomb. You smoke off the choke point to hopefully force the people front sight to go into the choke point behind your smoke. Then, this is the third and final mistake that I notice when people are trying to retake with their smokes, is they will just re-smoke the choke point again. You don't want to do that. You want to smoke off the bomb. So let's say for this hypothetical example, the spike was planted right here, generator, standard plant right here. You would then want to smoke off the bomb so that you can then tap the bomb completely safe. Now, if the bomb is tapped and the choke point is smoked instead of the bomb, it is as simple as the enemies just jump spotting out of the smoke, just like this. They just have to look at their minimap to see if you're on the bomb or not. And then the entire mind game of, oh, am I on the bomb or am I not on the bomb? Do I spam the bomb and waste all my bullets? That entire mind game is gone because all they have to do is just jump spot out, and then you're good. Alternatively, when you smoke off the bomb, it's a complete mystery whether or not you are actually sticking this bomb or not, and they have to actively push you to check. Or they can start just spamming, and then as they're wasting all their bullets spamming, you swing out the side of the smoke and you kill them as their, recoil is resetting. Really is as simple as that. So this is just mistake number 1 that I see people do. Not really super complicated, don't worry about it. The next mistake that I see people making in their ranked games a lot is not understanding numbers advantage. Numbers advantage in Valorant can be broken down and compartmentalized to a very simple rule known as the higher or lower rule. Essentially, what this rule means is if you are up numbers, then you play more passive, and if you are down numbers, then you play more aggressive. But let's get into that a little bit more. So if you are up numbers, let's say you are in a 4 versus 3. Your teammates have 4 people. The enemy team has 3 people. You want to do everything in your power to keep that numbers advantage in your favor because, realistically speaking, if each of your teammates were to die and get traded by each of the enemy teammates, it would then whittle it down to a 3 versus 2, a 1 versus 2, and then a 1 versus 0 in your team's favor. So if everyone just plays for trades, you win. Now you want to keep this numbers advantage, so you aren't going to be going out and taking risky fights that lose your life. You're going to stick with your teammates so you can play for trades and win. However, on the flip side, if you are down numbers, say that you are in a 4 versus 5 where your team has 4 people and the enemy team has 5 people, you want to be taking those aggressive and risky fights with the hopes of getting one and not getting traded, or punishing the enemy team for overextending themselves and not following the higher or lower rule, so that you can whittle it down to a 4 versus 4, or even get the numbers advantage back in your favor. Now, following the same rule, if at any point you gain numbers advantage, you then have to play more passive to keep that numbers advantage in your favor. It really is as simple as that, but this is something that I see a lot of my students making the mistake of doing, so keep that in mind the next time you're in a ranked game and you will be winning a lot more rounds. The next mistake that I see people making a lot has to do with gunfights. Now, this doesn't have to do with anything about aim or crosshair placement. That can be fixed with practice. I'm talking about something consistent that you can remember to do every gunfight, and that is movement. Obviously, you've probably seen strafe in between your shots with your movement, but oftentimes what that leads to people doing is doing tiny little strafes like this. While this is better than nothing and it does let you shoot slightly faster, at the end of the day, your head is only moving by about this much on the enemy screen, and this is the easiest micro adjustment of my life, even with carpal tunnel. So if your head is only moving by this little bit and you can easily get micro adjusted on, obviously what you want to do is strafe wider. And this is the third mistake that I see a lot of people making, is when they strafe and move in between their gunfights, they don't strafe wide enough. You need to make sure that your head is moving significantly enough so that your enemies doesn't have to micro adjust. They have to do a full re-aim, because micro adjusting like this is a lot different than being over here and having to do another aim and a micro adjustment like that. So that's what you want to be doing anytime you're in a gunfight. Whenever you are, lining up your shot and get ready for a burst strafe, you want to make sure that your strafes are large enough, one, so that you can give yourself time to aim onto the bot's head, but two, so that you can make your head mobile enough to make it more difficult for them to shoot you. So that's another mistake. Move more in your gunfights. Don't do tiny little strafes like this. You're not tens, you're not one-tapping people. The next mistake I want to talk about is not knowing when to break off from your team's formation. To illustrate my point, I have set up a quick Valorant scenario. Now, this is about where a round would start for a standard round on Pearl. Let's assume that you, the team in blue, want to go B. Generally, what's going to happen is you are going to rush down B long. Let's assume you are playing chamber in this scenario. You're gonna be, 5 men rushing down B long. Your neon's gonna slide and kill the enemy neon. Yoru's gonna peek out and trade your neon, blah, blah, blah. And then Breach probably util dumps the Yoru and the Yoru runs away. And then KO's probably gonna sat here waiting to play for retake. At this point, you are at an advantageous part of the round. We're assuming you're playing chamber here. What do you do? Now, you are at an advantage in the round, but you are 4v1ing this KO on site right now. The site is essentially yours and you can get the bomb down. At this point, what most players would probably do is they would probably just sit and clump up with their team on site, maybe play it even a little bit further back to spam the bomb, and then get completely overwhelmed on the retake as your Clove kills your Omen, your Breach probably kills this guy, KO flashes out for the Clove and kills your Breach, and right now you're in a 2 versus 3 and you're completely cooked. So let's reverse that scenario a little bit here, shall we? As these people are rotating over, you could be doing something away from your team. The KO was right here. Now, the point that I want to make here is playing with your team is generally a good idea. However, when there's dead space in a round, that is dead space that you could be using to make a play. So most likely, the optimal play to go for here would be to break off from your team and maybe go mid and try and get into either their spawn to cut off rotations, or at this point they're probably going to be about right here to get backs turned to you here, because they're not going to be expecting you in their spawn at this point, especially if they just saw you be main. Or you could walk up mid and you can go here and maybe try and kill the KO. Again, this is just a realistic scenario. This is probably where one person on the enemy team is going to be, but you could be playing away from your team to put your team in an advantageous position, because now you have more map control. You've taken away one angle of their retake. It's still a 3 versus 3 on site. If you did get a kill. However, you have the advantageous position because say the Cypher is trying to fight your Omen, swing out, back turn to you, kill the Cypher. Now, just by simply knowing when to play away from your team, you have put yourself in a very advantageous position. So don't always feel like you have to be glued to your team. Give yourself scenarios where if there's dead space in a round where you're either waiting for rotates or waiting for your team to do something or planting the bomb or something where there's silence in a round, you can use that time to then go break off from your team and make a round winning play. You could turn rounds that would be even and just down to aim duels into more advantageous rounds where you have better map control, better positioning, better backs turned to you, opportunities for free kills, etc. General gist: break away from your team more often. You don't have to be glued to them by the hip. So my fifth and final point in this video is going to be talking about layered thinking. Now, before you click off the video thinking that I'm about to go on another unscripted tirade, you're correct, but this is a very important point that I want to get across and will help you a lot in your games if you can get this in your head. The first place I heard about layered thinking from was from the fighting game community. And in fighting games, every character has moves, and some moves are more difficult to deal with than others. However, there are moves in fighting games that counter other moves directly. So say there's a very slow, powerful punch. That slow, powerful punch can then get interrupted by a quicker, weaker punch that does less damage, but it interrupts the big punch. That is known as layer one thinking. You do one thing, and then layer one is your opponent countering that thing with another thing of their own. This can be easily translated to Valorant. So let's say that there is an operator that plays the same angle every single round. How would you then deal with that with layer one? You would probably either flash the angle or smoke it off. That's layer one right there. And that right there is where a lot of players stop. The operator either stops trying to op because they got past layer one of their defense and layer one of their thinking, and they just quit without trying to go to layer two. Now, this is a very advanced and very complicated concept, but if you understand this, your gameplay will exponentially increase. You need to go past layer one of thinking in your games. Once you condition your opponent to act a certain way, you then need to think, what did I just condition my opponent to do? Then you can proceed to punish them for acting in that certain way. To further illustrate my point, take a look at this. So let's say you are playing Astra, and every single round you walk up mid and you shoot this breach in the back and he dies. Eventually, at some point, this breach is going to want to do something about that. This is layer one. Probably what the breach is going to do is he's probably going to sit here, wait for you to walk up, and then try and shoot you in the back, right? Now, let's say the breach dies 2 or 3 times to this, and then he starts sitting in this corner and waiting for you to walk up and shooting you in the back. What would you on layer 2 then do? I'll give you a couple seconds to figure out an answer in the comments, but probably what you're going to do is you're probably going to hard clear him, pre-fire him, and then kill him right here. This is layer 2. Now, what if this breach plays an off angle then? An angle that you can't really predict where he is because he could be right here, he could be right here, he could play in this corner, he could even sit in this corner, he could play on this off angle. Breach starts then playing on some kind of off angle where you cannot predict where he's going to be. What do you then do for layer 3? Well, for layer 3, you could A, just not flank at all and leave the breach away from his team. That is a very, very common solution to this, is just stop doing what you were doing and leave your opponents conditioned so that they're away from their team. That's good. Or you could sit here and wait for a little bit. Maybe the breach gets a little bit bored and walks out to check, because at this point the breach knows you like to flank and they're like, I'm getting a little bit suspicious. You can play an off angle, wait for the breach to walk out and then kill him. You have options. Now, oftentimes players will just stop at layer 1. The second that they get killed by the breach sitting in the corner, you say to yourself, I'm never flanking again. Nope, not even thinking about it. And you're throwing away all of the advantage that you would have gotten from conditioning your opponents to think a certain way. Now, again, this is a very, very important concept to drill into your head very, very early into the game. If you are new to the game or if you've just started playing the game seriously, this is something that you need to start thinking about, because this is the fundamentals of Valorant strategy. And a mistake that I see so many people making is they're throwing away so much mind games and so much strategy and outplay that they could be throwing at their opponents just because they got countered once. Countering equals conditioning, and conditioning equals strategy. Simple as that. Anyways, those are my 5 points. Hopefully this video does better than that gamer gauntlet video. But anyways, with all that being said, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. I make guide videos like this all the time, and if you want more or want me to cover a topic, let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, this has been Berate. Remember to brush your teeth today, because I haven't.